My wife made a video with my cousin, so I played it during her big job interview to expose them both. Man, where do I even start? 5 years, that's how long we were married. No kids yet, but we always talked about it. I thought she was my forever, you know? I loved her more than anything. She was the one person I'd never question, never doubt. I built my whole life around her. I'd work my ass off every day, dreaming of the life we were gonna have. A house full of kids, growing old together, all that. But then, things started changing. Slowly at first, nothing huge. She got a little distant, stopped wanting to hang out like we used to, and the intimacy? Yeah, that completely tanked. At first, I chalked it up to stress or maybe just one of those phases people go through. I wasn't gonna push her. I loved her too much to make a big deal out of it, so I figured it'd pass. I did what any guy would do when your wife stops wanting to be close, you deal with it on your own. You know what I'm talking about. You hit up a few adult sites, get through it. Harmless, right? That's when it all started falling apart. One night, I was scrolling through one of the top sites, just looking for something to take my mind off how shitty things had been. And then, I saw a video that caught my eye. The woman in it, she looked so familiar. But I couldn't place it at first. I clicked play and settled in, but then something felt weird. The way she moved, the way she sounded, it was too damn familiar. And that's when it hit me like a ton of bricks. I stopped dead in my tracks, my heart pounding in my chest. No, it couldn't be. I told myself I was just being paranoid, that I was imagining things. But I couldn't shake it. So, I kept watching, hoping I was wrong. She was facing away from the camera most of the time, but then she turned. That's when my world came crashing down. It was her. My wife. In an adult video. And not just with any guy. Nope. The man with her? My cousin. I swear to God, I felt my entire body freeze. I just sat there, staring at the screen, not even able to breathe. My brain was screaming at me to stop watching, to turn it off and forget it, but I couldn't. I couldn't look away. I thought about shutting the laptop, pretending I didn't see it. But it was too late. There she was, on some website for the whole damn world to see, doing things I never even imagined she'd do. And the worst part? With my cousin. The guy I grew up with. We were practically brothers. I felt this burning in my chest, like my heart had been ripped out and stomped on. I wanted to scream, punch a wall, something. But I just sat there, in shock. I couldn't believe it. The woman I loved more than anything, the one I thought I'd spend my life with, was sleeping with my own blood, on camera. That's when the rage started building inside me. For a while, I just sat there. I don't even know how long. Could have been minutes, could have been hours. Time didn't mean anything in that moment. My mind was racing, trying to process what I just saw. But no matter how hard I tried to rationalize it, I kept coming back to the same thing, my wife and my cousin. In a video. For the whole world to see. What the hell do you even do after that? At first, I tried to tell myself it was some kind of sick joke. Maybe someone was messing with me. Maybe it was some weird deepfake or something. But deep down, I knew the truth. That was her. And that was him. No doubt about it. I've seen her body 1,000 times, I know how she moves, the sound of her voice, hell, the little freckle on her shoulder she's always been self-conscious about. There was no denying it. I closed the laptop and just stared at the wall. I felt numb, like my whole world just got ripped apart in front of me. You ever feel that kind of pain? Where it's so deep, so raw, that you don't even know how to react. I wanted to punch something, scream, anything to get the anger out. But all I could do was sit there in silence, my mind replaying the video over and over again. Why? Why the hell would she do this? We had our problems, sure. Every couple does. But we were supposed to be solid, you know? We were supposed to get through the tough times and come out stronger. I thought we were working through things. But apparently, while I was sitting at home like a fool, trying to figure out why she didn't want to touch me anymore, she was out there getting with my cousin. I don't know if I've ever felt betrayal like that in my life. It wasn't just her. It was him too. My cousin. The guy I grew up with. He was like a brother to me. We used to be tight, real tight. Family holidays, late night talks, all that. I trusted him. He was supposed to be someone I could count on. And now I was watching him screw my wife on camera like it was nothing. Like I didn't even exist. What kind of person does that? I kept thinking about all the times I'd seen him recently, hanging out at family gatherings, talking to me like everything was normal. The guy had the balls to look me in the eye, knowing damn well what he was doing behind my back. I wanted to puke just thinking about it. All the fake smiles, the little jokes. He probably thought it was funny. Maybe they both did. I sat there replaying every conversation I had with him over the past few months. Every time he said something nice about her, complimented her. I never thought twice about it. But now, it all felt like one big joke. Like they were laughing at me the whole time. I don't know what hurt more, the fact that she cheated on me, or the fact that it was with him. It's one thing to have your wife cheat. That's bad enough. But to do it with someone so close to me? That cut deeper than anything. They both stabbed me in the back, and it felt like they twisted the knife just to see how much it would hurt. At some point, I snapped out of it and decided to go to bed. Not because I was tired, but because I didn't know what else to do. What do you even do after something like that? I laid there staring at the ceiling, my mind spinning, trying to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do next. Do I confront her? Do I go after him? Do I just pretend like I never saw it? Part of me wanted to go right downstairs, grab her, and demand answers. But another part of me was scared to face it. What if she lied? What if she tried to gaslight me? Tell me I was crazy, that I was imagining things? I'd seen enough stories online to know how these things go. The cheater always lies until they can't lie anymore, and I wasn't in the mood to hear her excuses. But then the other thought hit me, what if she told the truth? What if she just admitted it? What if she looked me in the eye and said, yeah, I slept with him. So what? I didn't know if I could handle that. So I didn't do anything. I laid there, staring at the ceiling, feeling my whole world crumble around me, too scared to move. Too scared to find out the truth. I didn't sleep that night. Not even for a minute. I kept replaying that video in my head, every single second of it. The sounds, the way they touched each other, the looks they gave each other, all of it burned into my brain. I couldn't shake it. It was like some sick horror movie on loop, except I was the star of it, and I couldn't turn it off. By the time morning rolled around, I was exhausted, but I knew I couldn't just sit there anymore. I had to do something. I had to find out why the hell this happened. But I didn't want to talk to her yet. I didn't trust myself to keep my cool. I knew if I opened my mouth, I'd probably say something I couldn't take back. So instead, I decided to figure out what the hell else was going on. If she was bold enough to film that video, who knows what else she was doing behind my back. And that's when I started going down the rabbit hole. I went through her phone while she was in the shower. Nothing out of the ordinary at first, same old texts, social media, the usual stuff. But I knew better. I wasn't a total idiot. People don't just leave evidence like that lying around. I figured she probably had another phone or maybe was using some app one didn't know about. I kept digging, but I came up with nothing. It was like she had cleaned everything up. No shady texts, no secret calls, nothing. But that only made me more suspicious. She was hiding something. I could feel it. And then it hit me. I remembered all the times she mentioned she wanted to get back into work. How she'd been talking about needing a change, something to shake things up. And suddenly, it all clicked. The cousin, the distance, the sudden career ambitions. It all lined up. She didn't just cheat on me, she was probably planning her way out. And that's when the anger really started bubbling up. The more I thought about it, the more pissed off I got. It wasn't just that she cheated, it was how damn sneaky she'd been about it. Making me think everything was fine, like she was just going through a phase or something. Meanwhile, she was out there screwing my cousin and planning her next move. Like I was some idiot who'd never catch on. I didn't even want to look at her. I mean, how do you even face someone after seeing what I saw? But I knew I had to play it cool, at least until I figured out how to handle this. So I started doing what I'd never thought I'd do, going full detective mode on my own wife. While she was still in the shower, I grabbed her laptop. Figured maybe I'd find something there. I was desperate to know how deep this went, how long it had been happening. Was this a one-time thing, or had they been screwing each other behind my back for months? Maybe years? I opened it up and, at first, nothing jumped out. Same old stuff, emails, social media. I clicked through her tabs like a pro, hoping something would give her away. Then, I saw her browser history. Bingo. She'd been visiting that same damn adult site where I found the video. Not once, not twice, but regularly. Like, multiple times a week. My stomach turned. Why the hell was she checking out that site? Was she keeping tabs on her own videos? Was she getting off on the idea of people watching her with him? I felt sick just thinking about it. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through the links. It wasn't just that one video either. There were others. Different angles, different places. These weren't random, spur-of-the-moment hookups. This was planned. This was some kind of sick routine they had going. I clicked on one of the links, my heart racing as it loaded. The video started, and there they were again, my wife and my cousin. Except this time, it wasn't just some grainy amateur video. This was professional. Like, full lighting, decent camera work, the whole 9 yards. It was almost like they wanted it to look good. I sat there, stunned. My mind couldn't wrap around it. They weren't just screwing behind my back, they were practically running a side hustle. My wife, the woman I loved, was out here making videos with my cousin and putting them on the internet for strangers to watch. It felt like I was living in some messed up nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I wanted to confront her right then and there, drag her out of the shower and demand answers. But I didn't. Not yet. I had to play it smart. I had to figure out my next move before I exploded. I wasn't just gonna be some chump who got cheated on and did nothing about it. No way. I started downloading the videos. Every single one of them. I needed proof, something to confront her with when the time came. Something she couldn't deny. As I sat there, saving file after file, I started thinking about what I was going to do. How was I going to get back at them? What would really hit them where it hurts? Then, it hit me. See, my wife had been trying to get this new job for a while now. Some fancy position at my cousin's company, of all places. She had this big presentation coming up that was supposed to seal the deal. I remember her talking about it for weeks, stressing over every little detail. She thought this was her ticket to a fresh start, to getting out of whatever rut she was pretending to be in. Suddenly, I had an idea. A brutal, glorious idea. I was gonna let her have her presentation. But not the one she was planning. Oh no, she wasn't gonna wow the execs with some PowerPoint. She was gonna wow them with her little side gig. The videos of her and my cousin. Revenge was starting to taste sweet, even just thinking about it. They thought they were so smart, sneaking around, making a fool out of me. But I wasn't just gonna sit back and take it. No way. They were gonna pay for what they did. After downloading everything, I cleaned up. Made sure the laptop looked untouched and everything was back where it was. She came out of the shower a few minutes later, acting like everything was normal. I could hear her humming to herself, like she didn't have a care in the world. I wanted to laugh in her face. She had no idea what was coming. That night, I laid in bed next to her, my heart pounding in my chest. I could feel the rage bubbling under the surface, but I kept it in check. Just a little longer, I told myself. I needed the timing to be perfect. I wasn't gonna blow up and give her a chance to lie or make excuses. No, I was gonna do this right. For the next few days, I played it cool. I acted like nothing was wrong, just going through the motions while she prepared for her big presentation. She was nervous as hell, too, asking me for advice, trying to get my input. It took everything in me not to laugh in her face. Every time she asked what I thought, I just nodded along, keeping the plan in the back of my mind. Then, the day finally came. She had her presentation all set up on her laptop. She was getting ready to head out for the meeting with my cousin's company, because of course, she was trying to work with him now. The whole thing was so messed up it made me want to scream. But instead, I waited. She jumped in the shower one last time before leaving, and that's when I made my move. I grabbed her laptop, quickly deleted her boring-ass presentation, and uploaded the videos of her and my cousin. All of them. Every single one. When she opened that file, it wasn't gonna be some corporate pitch. Nope. It was gonna be the show of her life. And then I waited. I felt this surge of adrenaline, knowing that in a few hours, the truth was gonna come crashing down on her in the most brutal way possible. And there wasn't a damn thing she could do to stop it. The day finally came. I'd been waiting for this moment, holding all that anger and betrayal inside, and now it was time to put my plan into motion. She had no clue what was coming. She was all stressed out, buzzing around the house getting ready for her big presentation. I acted like nothing was wrong, just nodded and gave her little bits of fake advice whenever she asked. She was practically shaking, going on about how important this interview was, how it could be a game changer for her career. I just kept nodding, trying not to laugh. The kicker? The presentation was for a job at my cousin's company. The same cousin she was screwing behind my back. It couldn't get more twisted. But it also couldn't be more perfect. She jumped in the shower to freshen up before heading out, and that was my cue. I grabbed her laptop, opened the presentation she had spent weeks perfecting, and deleted it. Just like that, gone. Then I uploaded the videos. You know the ones. Her and my cousin, playing out their little fantasies for the camera. I made sure everything looked the same, put her laptop back like nothing had happened, and waited. I felt this rush of adrenaline, like I was finally in control again. She had no idea. Not a single clue that her entire world was about to come crashing down. She came out of the shower, all business, all confidence. Gave me a quick kiss goodbye, like we were still the same happy couple we'd always been. It took everything in me not to smirk as she walked out the door, thinking she was about to crush this presentation. But she wasn't going to be pitching her big ideas. Oh no. When she plugged in that laptop and hit play, she was about to show them a whole different kind of performance. I imagined it, her standing there in front of a room full of people, including the top execs, all of them expecting some big, professional pitch. Instead, they'd get a front row seat to the real her. Her and my cousin, putting on a show for the whole world. And there'd be no explaining her way out of it. No excuses. Just the brutal truth, right there on the screen. It felt good, knowing I'd finally have the upper hand. I couldn't stop imagining it, the scene playing over and over in my head. Her, all confident, walking into that office with her laptop in hand, probably thinking she had this in the bag. She was about to blow them away, but not in the way she thought. Meanwhile, I sat back at home, trying to keep my cool. It was hard not to laugh, thinking about the moment when the video would start rolling, and her face would drop. Can you picture it? A room full of executives, my cousin included, all sitting there expecting a professional presentation, and boom, there she is, doing her dirty little side hustle with him. And not just one clip. I uploaded all of it. Every single moment of her betrayal, for them to see. I didn't know exactly what time the interview was, but I figured it'd be around midday. So I sat there, checking the clock every few minutes, waiting. My heart was pounding in my chest the whole time. Part of me couldn't believe I'd actually done it, but the other part of me? Oh man, it felt damn good. Finally, my phone buzzed. It was her. I almost didn't pick up, just to let her stew, but curiosity got the better of me. I answered, trying to sound casual. She didn't even say hello. Just a panicked, "What the hell did you do?" I could hear the chaos in the background, people shouting, papers shuffling. She was freaking out, her voice shaking, like she couldn't believe what had just happened. I could almost picture her standing there, scrambling to close the laptop while everyone stared at her in disbelief. I couldn't help but smile. "What are you talking about?" I asked, playing dumb. "You know damn well what I'm talking about. The videos, you replaced my presentation with the F***King videos. You ruined everything." She was practically screaming at this point. I leaned back in my chair, calm as ever. "Oh, those videos? Yeah, I figured everyone should see the real you. And hey, looks like your cousin got a front row seat." She went silent for a second. I think that was the moment it all hit her. The weight of what she'd done, the fact that there was no going back. She wasn't just exposed to a bunch of strangers, she was exposed to him, her boss, everyone. "You're insane," she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. "You ruined my life." I laughed, a real, deep laugh. "Oh no, sweetheart, you did that all by yourself?" Then I hung up. I sat there, feeling this weird mix of satisfaction and emptiness. I got my revenge, sure. But there was this part of me that realized nothing would ever fix what she did. There was no going back to the life we had. Everything was shattered, for both of us. And I was fine with that. After I hung up, I just sat there for a while, letting it all sink in. I imagined her standing in that office, completely humiliated, surrounded by the wreckage of her perfect little plan. She must have been frozen, realizing she couldn't talk her way out of this one. My cousin, too, probably sat there in shock, piecing together that I knew everything. The thought of them realizing I wasn't the fool they thought I was felt like a win. A part of me wished I could have been there, seeing the look on their faces as the video played. The awkward silence that must have followed, the execs trying to act like they hadn't just witnessed my wife and cousin in full-blown action. But honestly, hearing her panic over the phone was enough. I had gotten what I wanted. For a moment, I thought maybe the anger had passed. I'd done something, taken control in the middle of all that betrayal. It felt like I could finally breathe. But then the silence settled in around me, and my mind drifted back to everything she had done. All those months of lying to my face, making me feel like I was the problem, while she snuck around with my cousin. It wasn't just the cheating. It was the way she disrespected me, treating me like a clueless idiot while she lived this secret life behind my back. And the worst part? I never saw it coming. I thought we were just going through a rough patch like any couple does. I believed we'd come out of it stronger. But she wasn't even there anymore. She had already checked out, and I was too blind to notice. I sat there for a long time, stewing in it, until I heard the front door creak open. I knew it was her before she even said a word. I waited, expecting her to come at me, screaming or accusing me of ruining her life. But she didn't. She just stood there, looking wrecked, her eyes red, her makeup smeared. She asked if I was happy now, if I got what I wanted. Her voice was weak, like she was barely holding it together. I didn't respond right away, just looked at her. She was a mess, and for a second, I almost felt bad. Almost. But then that video played back in my head, and any guilt I had vanished. I told her I was happy, feeling no need to sugarcoat it. She dropped her bag and started pacing, her hands running through her hair in frustration. She said I didn't have to do this, that we could have talked. But I cut her off before she could finish that thought. Talk? I told her she hadn't exactly wanted to talk when she was screwing my cousin behind my back. That hit her hard, I could see it in her face. She tried to explain it wasn't supposed to happen like this, but I just laughed at the absurdity of it. How was it supposed to happen? Was I supposed to be okay with it, just accept her lies and move on? She started crying again, saying she made a mistake. I corrected her, telling her it wasn't a mistake, it was a choice. She chose to betray me, to lie, to sneak around. Now, she had to live with the consequences. She just stood there, speechless, with tears in her eyes. And in that moment, I realized I didn't care anymore. I was done. I told her to start packing, motioning toward the door. She wasn't staying here anymore. Then, I walked past her without another word, feeling a strange sense of peace for the first time in a long while. As I walked past her, it was like something inside me clicked. The weight of all those sleepless nights, all the confusion, and all the anger, it was gone. I didn't care what she did next. She was no longer my problem. She stood there for a moment, probably in shock, not expecting me to be so cold. I imagined she thought there'd be more yelling, maybe some begging for forgiveness. But I wasn't giving her that. She had made her choices, and I wasn't interested in hearing her excuses anymore. I went upstairs and sat on the bed, our bed. Well, it wasn't ours anymore, was it? It was just a piece of furniture now, another reminder of what she ruined. I started scrolling through my phone, trying to distract myself from the noise I knew was about to come. I could hear her downstairs, crying quietly, probably packing her things. Good. She knew it was over. Part of me thought she'd try to fight it, that she'd try to convince me to give her another chance. But there were no more words left to say. She had crossed the line, and there was no coming back. I wasn't going to be that guy who takes back a cheater, who lets them crawl back with promises they never intended to keep. I imagined she was panicking, trying to figure out where to go, what to do next. Her perfect little life had just crumbled in a matter of hours, and now she was probably realizing she didn't have many options left. Not after the stunt she pulled at that presentation. I could still hear her downstairs, moving around, probably trying to pack as quietly as possible. I didn't bother to go down. I didn't need to see her face. I didn't need any more explanations or half-hearted apologies. She knew what she had done, and she knew there was no way to fix it. As the minutes ticked by, I felt lighter. The weight of everything was finally starting to lift. I wasn't stuck anymore. I had taken control. She thought she could betray me and get away with it, but now she was the one left scrambling. And my cousin? Well, his world was about to implode too. It felt like the perfect end to a nightmare I never wanted to be a part of. Finally, I heard the front door close. The sound echoed through the house. She was gone. Just like that, 5 years of marriage, 5 years of memories, gone in the blink of an eye. But I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel regret. I felt free. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't weighed down by her lies, by the constant suspicion. I had my life back. The moment the front door clicked shut, it felt like the final chapter had closed. She was out of my life, just like that. I sat there on the bed for a bit, staring at the ceiling, trying to process how everything went down. It was weird, you know? 5 years together, and it ended in silence. No big dramatic fight, no desperate pleas. Just the sound of her leaving. I pictured her outside, dragging her bags to the car, probably still in shock at how quickly it all unraveled. I wondered where she was going. To a friend's place? Maybe back to my cousin's house, though after what happened at that interview, I doubted he'd want to deal with her. The thought of them both scrambling to figure out their next move felt like a win. They deserved each other. For a while, I just sat there, letting the quiet sink in. The house felt different, almost hollow without her in it. Not in a bad way, though. It was like all the tension that had been building over the past few months was finally gone. I wasn't walking on eggshells anymore, trying to figure out what was wrong, why she was pulling away. I knew now. And knowing felt like closure. I got up and started walking around the house, taking in the space that had once felt like ours. The couch we used to sit on, the kitchen where we'd make dinner together, the little things that seemed so normal, now just felt like scenes from someone else's life. I realized I'd never look at any of this the same way again. Everything she touched, everything that had our memories attached to it, it didn't mean anything now. The funny thing was, I wasn't angry anymore. Not like I had been before. I thought I'd be fuming after she left, that I'd still be filled with all that rage. But I wasn't. I just felt done. Like I had finally crossed the finish line of a race I didn't even know I was running. She was gone, and with her, all the lies and betrayal she brought into my life. I knew there'd be fallout, that there'd be more to deal with in the days ahead, divorce papers, the family finding out, all that messy stuff. But in that moment, it didn't matter. I wasn't thinking about the future, or what would come next. I was just enjoying the silence, the peace that came with knowing I was finally free from her lies. I walked back into the bedroom and started grabbing her things. Clothes, shoes, whatever she'd left behind. I didn't want any part of her in my space anymore. I piled it all up and shoved it into a few bags, leaving them by the door. If she wanted the rest of her stuff, she could come and get it. But I wasn't going to sit around waiting for her. This was my house now. My life. And she wasn't part of it anymore. After I bagged up the rest of her stuff and left it by the door, I took a deep breath. It was strange how quiet the house felt without her, but not in a way that bothered me. More like the calm after a storm. No more pretending, no more walking around feeling like something was wrong but not knowing what. Now, I knew, and now, she was out. I walked through the living room, thinking about all the little moments we had there. Late-night TV marathons, dinners on the couch, her curling up next to me when things were still good. All those memories felt distant, like they belonged to someone else's life. The house felt like a blank slate now. Everything tied to her, every trace of us as a couple, just felt like clutter. I knew I needed to start making this place mine again, piece by piece. There was no way I was going to live in a house full of reminders of her and the lies she'd spun. I wasn't sentimental about it either. The more I thought about it, the more I realized I wanted to strip everything down. Redo the whole place, maybe even get rid of the furniture. I didn't want to sit on that couch and think about her, or lie in that bed and picture her with my cousin. No way. But before all that, I knew I needed to tell someone. I couldn't keep this to myself forever. My family was going to find out eventually. I figured my cousin was already dealing with his own fallout from that video stunt I pulled, but I wasn't worried about him. I was thinking about the rest of the family. How was I going to explain this? I thought about calling my parents, or maybe a close friend, but for some reason, I wasn't ready yet. It was still too fresh. I didn't want to deal with all the "I'm so sorry" or "how could she do this to you" stuff. I didn't want to hear people tell me they'd seen it coming, or worse, act shocked like they never imagined she was capable of it. So I put off calling anyone and decided to deal with the rest of the house first. I grabbed a few boxes from the garage and started packing up more of her stuff. Little by little, I took down everything that reminded me of her. Wedding photos, souvenirs from trips we took, gifts she gave me, everything went into the boxes. Out of sight, out of mind. I figured once I was done, I'd drive the boxes over to her or dump them at her sister's place. I didn't care. I just wanted everything gone. I wasn't gonna sit around with her stuff in my house like some sad reminder of what she did. And the more I packed, the better I felt. Each item I tossed into a box felt like I was reclaiming my space, taking back control of my life. This was the new beginning I didn't even know I needed. And as I cleared away the last of her things, I realized something. I didn't feel like a victim anymore. I felt like I'd won. Once I finished boxing up the last of her stuff, the house felt different. Lighter, almost. It was like every photo, every little piece of her I shoved into those boxes was lifting a weight off my chest. I didn't have to look at her face anymore or think about the fake memories we'd built. It was all packed away, ready to be dropped off or trashed. I hadn't decided which yet, but either way, it was out of my life. I figured she'd come for her things eventually, but I wasn't in any rush to deal with that. She knew she wasn't welcome here, and if she wanted her stuff, she'd have to figure it out on her own. I wasn't going to make it easy for her. After what she didn't deserve easy. After clearing the living room and bedroom of anything tied to her, I sat down on the couch. It was the first time I really took a moment to breathe, to sit in the space I had reclaimed for myself. For the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. There were no more lies left to uncover. No more secrets. It was just me and my life, whatever that was going to look like from here on out. I thought about what came next. I knew divorce was inevitable, but weirdly, I wasn't anxious about it. I wasn't dreading the paperwork, the lawyers, or the process. It all felt like the next logical step, like something that had to happen to close the chapter for good. I wanted it done clean and fast. No drama. I didn't need any more emotional roller coasters, I just wanted her officially out of my life. I started thinking about how I'd tell my family. They were going to hear about it eventually, especially with my cousin involved in this mess. I could already picture the family gatherings, the awkward silences when he showed up, everyone trying to act normal when they knew damn well what had gone down. It was gonna be weird for a long time, but honestly, I didn't care. I figured most of them would take my side anyway. Who wouldn't? But before all that, I needed to deal with my cousin. We hadn't talked since everything went down. I hadn't heard a word from him, and I hadn't reached out either. I wasn't ready. I knew that conversation was gonna be brutal. Part of me wanted to tear into him, scream at him for being the piece of shit who betrayed me. But another part of me didn't even want to bother. He wasn't worth it. I had already gotten my revenge, and that felt like enough. If he was smart, he'd be too embarrassed to even look me in the eye after what happened. He'd probably try to avoid me at every family event from now on, and I was fine with that. As far as I was concerned, he didn't exist to me anymore. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that this wasn't about getting closure from them. I didn't need some apology from her, or him, or anyone. I didn't need to hear why they did it. I didn't need their excuses. The only thing I needed now was to focus on my own life and leave them in the past where they belonged. I stood up, stretched, and looked around my place. It was finally just that, my place. No ghosts of a broken marriage, no reminders of betrayal. Just me, in my own space, ready to move forward. And that felt damn good. After I had cleaned out everything that reminded me of her, I started thinking about what was next for me. The divorce was just a matter of time, but there was more to it than just signing papers and moving on. I realized I had to figure out what my life was going to look like without her. For so long, everything I did was tied to her. My future, my plans, it all revolved around the life we were supposed to build together. But now, I was on my own. And in a weird way, that idea didn't scare me like I thought it would. I knew I wasn't going to sit around and wallow in self-pity. That's not me. Yeah, I got hit hard by the betrayal, but I wasn't going to let it define me. If anything, it lit a fire under me to take control of my life. I wasn't the guy who got cheated on anymore. I was the guy who took that pain, that anger, and turned it into fuel to build something better. I figured the first thing I needed to do was get out of town for a bit. Clear my head. I had some vacation days saved up from work, and there was no better time to use them. Maybe I'd go visit some friends I hadn't seen in a while or take a road trip somewhere far away from all the chaos. The idea of just driving, with no real destination in mind, sounded pretty damn good. But before I could do that, I had to handle one last thing. I needed to sit down with a lawyer and start the process of the divorce. I didn't want this dragging out. The sooner I was officially done with her, the better. I wanted it quick, clean, and fair. I didn't need her to fight me on anything, and honestly, I didn't think she would. After everything, she had to know there was no fixing this. I made the call to set up a meeting with a lawyer I knew. A friend had gone through something similar a while back and recommended the guy. He told me this lawyer was no nonsense, straight to the point, and wouldn't let things get messy. That's exactly what I needed. I wasn't interested in drawn-out battles or emotional back-and-forths. I just wanted out. After I hung up, I felt a sense of relief. It was like I had taken the first real step toward closing this chapter for good. The next part of my life was about to begin, and for the first time in a long time, I was the one in control. Later that day, I started packing a bag. If I was going to take this road trip, I wanted to be ready to leave at a moment's notice. I threw in some clothes, my laptop, and a few other essentials. I wasn't sure how long I'd be gone or where I'd even go, but that was the point. I just wanted to drive, to get away from everything that reminded me of what had happened. The open road felt like freedom. No reminders of her, no family drama, just me and the miles ahead. I didn't care where I ended up, as long as it was far away from here. With my bag packed and my mind set on leaving, I felt like I was finally making real progress. It was weird, though, this wasn't how I imagined my life going, not by a long shot. But I had no other choice but to adapt. The more I thought about it, the more I realized I needed this escape. I wasn't just running from the mess my wife and cousin had left behind, I was chasing something new, something for myself. I got in the car that evening, just to feel the engine hum, to see if I was ready to go. I sat there for a minute, staring out the windshield, thinking about everything. I wasn't really sad anymore, more just numb to it all. The rage had burned out, and all that was left was this need to move on, to shake off the past and get back to being me. For a second, I thought about reaching out to someone. A friend or even my parents. Not to dump everything on them, but just to let someone know I was okay, that I was making moves to start fresh. But I stopped myself. I didn't want to deal with the sympathy, the how could she questions. I wanted to handle this on my own terms, without anyone telling me how I should feel or what I should do next. I sat there for a while longer, letting the silence of the car sink in. It was the first real quiet I'd had since everything went down, and it felt good. No more tension in the house, no more wondering if she was lying to me. Just me, alone with my thoughts. I decided I was definitely going to take that trip, hit the road and clear my head. But first, I needed to get one last thing off my chest. Before I left, I figured I should leave a message for her. Not a long, drawn-out letter or anything emotional, just something short and direct. She was going to come back for her things eventually, and I wanted her to know exactly where I stood. I grabbed a piece of paper from the kitchen counter, sat down, and thought about what to say. There wasn't much left to explain, really. She knew what she had done. I wasn't looking for closure or apologies anymore. I just wanted to make it clear that this was done, for good. I ended up writing a simple note: take your things and don't come back. We're finished. I'll handle the divorce. That was it. Nothing more, nothing less. I left the note on the coffee table, right where she'd see it if she came back while I was gone. With that done, I felt even more at peace. I had said my piece, made my decision, and now it was time to hit the road. I didn't know what the next few weeks would hold, but I knew one thing for sure: I wasn't going to sit around and let this breakup define me. It was time to put the past behind me, once and for all. So, with the note left behind and my bag packed, I was finally ready. The road was calling, and I wasn't going to wait any longer to answer. The next morning, I was up early, ready to get out of town. The sun hadn't even fully risen yet, and the air was crisp and quiet. It felt like the perfect time to leave. No goodbyes, no second guessing, just me and the road ahead. I grabbed my bag, locked up the house, and tossed everything into the trunk. It felt final in a way, closing the door on the past and driving toward something better, even if I didn't know exactly what that was yet. Before I pulled out of the driveway, I sat there for a minute, staring at the house. It wasn't home anymore, not with all the memories of what had happened still lingering in the walls. I told myself that when I came back, if I even came back, I'd make changes. I'd make the place feel like mine, without any trace of her left behind. But for now, it was just a pit stop, something I'd deal with later. I turned the key in the ignition, feeling the engine rumble to life. It felt good. Like the start of something. As I pulled out of the driveway, I didn't look back. I didn't need to. Everything behind me was just that, behind me. And for the first time in weeks, I felt like I was in control again. My life was mine, and I was done letting her take up space in my head. I hadn't mapped out exactly where I was going, and I liked it that way. No destination, no plan, just miles of open road and the freedom to figure things out as I went. The more I drove, the more I felt like I was leaving behind all the weight that had been sitting on my chest for so long. It was just me, the road, and the promise of something new. I thought about everything that had happened, the betrayal, the videos, the revenge, and for the first time, it didn't sting like it used to. I'd gotten my closure in my own way, handled things the best I could, and now it was over. Sure, there was still the divorce to deal with, but that felt more like a formality at this point. The real work had already been done. I had taken back control, and that's all that mattered. As the miles rolled by, I let myself relax. I wasn't thinking about her, or my cousin, or any of the mess they'd left in their wake. I was thinking about what I wanted, what came next for me. I didn't know where I was headed, but for the first time in a long time, that felt exciting instead of terrifying. I didn't need a plan. I didn't need answers. All I needed was the open road and the freedom to decide what I wanted my life to look like from here on out. And as I drove into the horizon, with nothing but the road ahead of me, I knew one thing for sure: I was finally free.